Hey guys, it's Nicole. So I did my project on DRO combined with a token economy system. What exactly is a DRO? DRO literally means differential reinforcement of other behavior. It is a procedure that decreases problem behavior by reinforcing the absence of the problem behavior. So the reinforcer gets delivered for any behavior that is not the problem behavior you're trying to decrease. The benefits of a DRO is it is widely applicable, meaning that it can be used in almost any setting and paired with other behavior change procedures. It's relatively quick to decrease problem behavior, so the problem behavior decreases more quickly than most procedures, and the only thing is that problem behavior can get worse before it gets better. DROs are often durable. It can withstand a long period of time. It's also generalizable, which means that it can be understood and used anywhere, anytime. The limitations of a DRO is that it may risk enforcing other unwanted behaviors because you're reinforcing every other behavior that is not the problem behavior. It can also make you only focus on the negative, since you're always looking for the problem behavior or the absence of the problem behavior, as opposed to a specific desired behavior as in DRA. The participant setting and materials. Participant in this study is a 16-year-old girl. She is diagnosed with cerebral palsy and autism. Her problem behaviors are screaming and refusing to work. This behavior change procedure takes place in a private school for students with intellectual and physical disabilities. It took place throughout the student's school day. The materials that were used are a token board, a timer, and an undesired task such as a worksheet or answering questions. In this picture, you'll see that the token board used with the student, she actually helped us design it to make it more motivating to her. She also picked 3 of her favorite things for tokens. In her case, it's Justin Timberlake, the Gryffindor crest from Harry Potter, and Jeanette the Chipmunk from the Chipettes. Data collection. So this is the first data collection sheet that was created for the student. It helps us see where in her day the behaviors are happening and what behavior she's displaying. So in the left-hand column, it says what class or therapy she's in, and then the middle is the behavior code, so whether she's screaming or refusing to work, or whether she had good behavior, and then a notes section to add in those little notes, how long she did it for, whether she still completed her work, how long it took her to complete her work. I personally think to see deeper into these behaviors, this data collection sheet can be modified to show how often the behavior is happening in a time period. It would also be helpful to know what task she was being asked to do. So for that, I actually modified this for the project. And to get a little closer, so this is the one I used. I kept the 3 original areas that were being covered on the previous data sheet, but I also added a few things. I added how many times did the behavior happen and how long the whole task took to complete. I also narrowed down the behavior codes to 3 instead of having 5. So I kept the screaming and the refusing to work, and then good behavior to show us that she wasn't not showing any problem behaviors. The procedure. To start, I placed an undesired task in front of the student. I then got her attention to make sure she was engaged. Next, I read the directions to her so she knew what was expected for that particular task. If she went 10 minutes without screaming or refusing to participate during the task, she earned a token. If she did scream during the 10-minute interval, then she did not earn a token. She was then reminded of what she was working toward and what would be a different appropriate behavior instead. Like, no screaming, instead, please use your words. This would be continued until until the task is complete. An example of an undesired task may be completing a worksheet, answering a teacher's question, or making a choice between a few answers. With this student, I used verbal prompting and gesture prompting. For example, suggesting she use her words or reminding her of what she is working toward if she's screaming. Or I point to the device as a quiet reminder to use her words. With the tokens, she had to earn 6 tokens in order to earn a reward of her choice. After she collected all 6 tokens and had her reward, the token collection started all over again. Pre-training. So the participant was talked to about the token board. As I said earlier, she was included in the making of the token board and the tokens she earned. The teacher and teacher aides met to discuss the use of the token board, what behaviors to look for, and when to reward the student with a token. It was also gone over how to use the timer and how to fill out the new data sheet. The student's team was then informed of the new system as well as any teacher or therapist that the student works with. Baseline. So during the baseline, the student was reminded every morning about her goal for the day and her token board. The teacher and teacher aides read the behavior definitions themselves each morning as a reminder of what behaviors look like. To figure out an appropriate interval, we timed the undesired task and tallied the amount of times the problem behaviors occurred. So in the student's case, her starting interval was 10 minutes. Currently, her interval is up to 30 minutes. We gradually increase the time by 5 minutes. The student had to go the entire 10 minutes without displaying any of the problem behaviors to receive a token. The DRO training, as in the baseline, an undesired task was placed in front of the student. The student's attention was gained. The directions were read to the student. If the student went 10 minutes without displaying any problem behaviors, she received a token. If the student showed some problem behaviors during the task, she was not given a token and given a reminder that she is working toward a reward. Once the student attained 6 tokens, she was given a choice of the reward she wanted for 2 minutes. After the student collected all 6 tokens and received the reward, she started all over. The results. So this graph displays the amount of time it took the student to complete a task. This particular graph shows 14 days of data. A timer was used to track the amount of time it took for her to complete the task. In the beginning, you can see that it took 30 to 45 minutes to complete a task. At the end, you can see that the amount of time to complete the task has decreased to 10 to 15 minutes. This graph shows whether or not problem behaviors were seen throughout the week. The red line is yes. You can see it started out as seeing the behavior 60% of the time during the week. It's now down to rarely or not seeing the behavior during the week at all. The pink line is no, and as you can see, it does the opposite of the yes line. It shows that the problem behaviors were being seen and eventually showed that rarely or no behaviors were being seen. This graph displays the amount of each behavior that was being seen during a week. The red line shows the amount of screaming seen by the student. She went from screaming 139 times a week down to less than 100 times a week. The pink line shows the amount of time she has refused to work throughout a week, and she went from 60 plus times a week down to 20 times a week. The purple line shows the amount of good behavior that was seen. It starts out low because we were seeing a lot of problem behaviors, but it ended up on the higher end because less problem behaviors were being seen. The results demonstrated that rewarding other behaviors that were not the problem behaviors were effective. Limitations of this particular study was the length of the study because it happened over several weeks instead of a longer period of time. and also the number of people that were involved in implementing it, it left more room for observer drift. Future research should focus on fading at the intervals at which the reinforcement is given. It might also be beneficial to examine changes in the student's environment, like whether it was loud or quiet, how many people were in the room, if there was a particular item that happened to be in the room. And that's it.